Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. You join us on the back of a win against Bournemouth away. Those things don't happen very often at all. But before we get into all of that, let's see who we've got on the show tonight. We welcome Alex. Alex, my friend, how are you?
Good, thanks, Tom. Yeah, an away win at the Vitality, not something we... I know there was a lot of nervousness, wasn't there, because of our record is pretty dire there. I think they've got an 80% win record, was what I read before the match. So, yeah, wasn't expecting, but a pleasant surprise.
It certainly was. I mean, just before we go any further, the Vitality Stadium, it doesn't ring well with me. It will always be Dean Court for me. Call me old school. But there you go. Dagan, how are you? You feeling pumped after the win yesterday?
I am. I didn't get to watch it live. I was tracking along with my phone while kind of at a work event, just checking in periodically and hoping that we would hold on. Once I saw the red, of course, that created a little nervousness for sure. But no, a lot of fun to be in this position. I listen to you guys and I think, like, I don't even remember 2 years ago, like as a new fan, let alone the ancient history. So yeah, I feel goldfish like, and look, it's Herzler. Like, none of the past applies. New manager, new team.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I'm not superstitious. I've never been superstitious, like, at all. But it's always been one of those things we hear fans go, "Oh, we never do well against Bournemouth away," or "We never do well against Bournemouth away," and then you don't do well against Bournemouth away. You start thinking, "Well, maybe there is something here." You talk about ancient history. Here's one for you, Dagan. It was a game at the Withdean, so we're talking quite a while ago against Bournemouth. Bournemouth got a penalty when their player handled the ball outside of the box. So there you go. There's a bit of ancient history for you from back in there. We are, of course, live, guys. We've got a lot to chat about, so keep your comments going. We know that Dagan especially loves keeping track of the chat there. So sorry for keeping you waiting, guys. It was Dagan's fault. They don't have clocks in America. What can we say? You know, there's only so much we at Albion Obsessed can do. He will get a written warning. It won't happen again.
It will. It will. Tom, how are you? You always inquire about us. How are you, my friend?
It's because I care. I've just had the flu, so like I haven't left the house in about 5 days. I went for a dog walk about an hour ago, and now I'm feeling absolutely exhausted. So I will power on through for you, the people, because I care. Just one more thing. I know you're all itching to talk about the game, and especially I can see someone's already put about that certain yellow card in there. But Dagan, you mentioned about keeping track of the game. For me and for many others, this was the first game where I did not step foot on the platform formerly known as Twitter. That app has gone from my phone. I am now a Blue Sky man. So for me, it was my first match day experience on Blue Sky, and it was very pleasant. It wasn't as busy, perhaps, as X or Twitter, but you know what? It was still quite a nice experience. Still got all the things I needed out of the match day experience. So, Dagan, how did you follow along? Were you still on Twitter? Were you using other apps? How did you do it?
Fought mob, my friend. Fought mob. Yeah, I stayed away from the discourse. The only time I checked in is when there was a goal pending, and I peeked at our WhatsApp, and no one had said anything. I was like, "What is happening with this goal?" But again, I was kind of darting around talking to people, and just, you know, when I got a free moment, I would check. But yeah, it was okay. I really didn't need to watch because I clearly predicted the entire, you know, outcome of the game on Twitter, or on both Blue Sky and Twitter prior. So I'll just pat myself on the back before anybody else does, just to save you guys the trouble. Cheers.
You're very good, Dagan, at predicting the future. And I wonder if you could predict the next game, because I've got a prediction that you're probably not going to like, but we'll talk about that a bit later on in the show. Alex, let's dive into it then. Let's start with the starting 11. João Pedro came in for the first time since August, and Baleba, after an amazing game against Manchester City, really changed the game against them. Came in, and they both came in for Hinch and Adingra respectively. It did mean that Rutter had to start out wide. When you saw the team sheet, were you sort of scratching your head about where Pedro, Welbeck and Rutter would play, or were you very much just like, yep, it's fine, whatever, it'll work?
No, that's what I expected actually from the front line. I'd called it out, I think, on a couple of bits. I'd been chatting to people on socials. I'm comfortable with Rutter on the right. I think he's fine there, and I think he's probably, with Minty seemingly still out, I don't know how long he's going to be out for. He's the best option, I think, on the right. To be fair, I think we've tried a Dinger. I know me and Dagan have chatted about a Dinger on the right a few times in our chat, and we've had a bit of discourse about that. He's a fine substitute. I think he fills in that position nicely. But Rutter, well, look, you just have to watch the interplay between those front players. You know, Welbeck and Rutter and JP yesterday. It was just absolutely brilliant. When they were on it, it was absolutely amazing. And well, I'm sure we'll talk about the goal in a minute, but yeah, I thought it worked really well, really beautifully. And do they stay in those positions for the whole match? No, they're roaming all over the place, aren't they? And shifting around. And you know what you start off with is not what you go in with. I think that's pretty sure.
Yeah, I think formations have always been sort of like a guideline, haven't they? More so than anything else. And I think the interchanging positions of those three players in particular worked out really, really well, which we'll, as you say, we'll talk about in a minute. But there was just one more player, Dagan, that I did want to talk about. We saw young McConville, 19-year-old defender, on the bench for the first time. He's just been called up for the Northern Ireland squad. We're very light on defenders at the moment. Many people were predicting that Lewis Dunk would be back for the game. He wasn't. Adam Webster still out injured as well. Do you think a centre-back is probably one of the few players we might look to bring in January?
I certainly think it's possible if we were going to make, such a move. Yeah. I wonder if we would make a short-term stopgap emergency veteran type signing. Somebody with a contract maybe that's about to expire, who's not going to stick with their team. I don't see us making a huge investment or going after a younger player to develop who could fill that spot. I think we would bring in somebody we felt like was ready to step in and contribute, even if only in an emergency. Would be my best guess. Otherwise, I think we'll probably see it out with the group we have and wait till the summer.
Do you think that there's a chance? For the love of God, I can't remember his name, but you will, because you keep a transfer tracker. There was that young lad from. There was a centre back that we were linked to in the summer. Yeah. Do you think there's any chance that we might try and pry him away? Because if I'm right, his contract is expiring in the summer, so it's the last opportunity his club will get for a fee.
Yeah, it is, and so I'd be curious to see, what PSV would expect to get for him. It's hard to imagine, we'd pay market value for a player we could get in the summer for free. But we're pushing for Europe, maybe for Champions League, and if we feel like he's a difference maker, a sort of a left-footed hybrid center back, left back. Yeah, maybe. I would also say he's one who I thought could potentially play in the sort of presumptive Vifer role where they would drop between the two center backs if we were, pushing more wing backs up with just two center backs that we saw Herzler use at St. Pauli. But we're not seeing as much of that really as of late. But Vifer hasn't quite looked the part all the way, and hasn't been to stay healthy either, so that hasn't helped him.
No, certainly not. And as many people are saying in the chat as well, Eric Dyer has been tentatively linked as well. So that's another potential option. Again, another player that can sort of do that centre defensive midfielder role well as well. So yeah, some interesting ones. It's interesting you say there, Dagan, about the Vifer, Mats Vifer, sorry, his role, because when we signed Herzler, I very much thought we were going to play this sort of, three at the back and then wing backs, but we haven't done that pretty much at all. So it's been really interesting to see how me and Alex were talking about this off air, about how almost pragmatic he's being. Our next opponents, Southampton, Russell Martin, perhaps not being as pragmatic. But again, more about those later. So it is, interesting starting 11. We've got a lot of players injured. We are at the top once again of the minutes lost for injury list. So that's great. But you know what? When you've just beaten Manchester City and you start the way we did against Bournemouth yesterday, doesn't look so bad. I think we were 3 minutes in when we scored, which was phenomenal. And Alex, you've already talked about the interplay. The interplay for the goal was absolutely sensational. Really great combination play between João Pedro, Rutter, and Welbeck. And then Rutter had his shot, which was parried by Kepa. And then Pedro did the thing that I, as a youth coach, and I'm sure Dagan's done it as a coach as well, that you always teach kids to do is follow the shot in, because when the keeper spills it, like happened yesterday, you're there to tuck in a rebound. Fantastic to see Pedro scoring again after coming back from injury. What did you make of the goal?
Yeah, as I said before, I mean, I love goals like that. They're my favourite, look, everyone loves a screamer, but when the team pulls together like that and you get that intricate play, I mean, I think a lot of shout needs to go to Danny, actually, because his hold up, his back to the goal, he took a couple of touches and then distributed it out to Rutter, where he was able to get the shot off. And then, as you say, João just doing what a number 9 should do, right? Just there in the right time, the right place. And he had to stretch for that ball to get it round the keeper, and he kind of stretched out, and then that was it, wasn't it? He was always going to bury that one. But I said, I think in our chat as well, what an impact he's had since coming back from injury, and he's only played, he played 20 minutes against City, I think, maybe a little bit more, and now a full match, and just you forget. I think I forgot, how electric he is and how much of a difference he makes in our creative play. I mean, he's just everywhere, and you just think he's a real threat. He worries defenders wherever he is, and he's brilliant. I loved it, and more of that, please.
Yeah, it's absolutely scintillating stuff, as I say. And Dagan, it's one of those goals that I genuinely think will probably be in one of our goal of the season montages that we'll see at the end of the season. What did you make of the goal and the sort of, it's the work players are doing off the ball as well as the work players are doing on the ball that makes that such a fantastic team goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see the partnership that's building, and the quickness with which the ball is moving. And guys are just, it's like a spinning top of attacking players, filling space in sometimes ways that are pretty unpredictable, at least to the opponent, I think. But it seems like we know what to expect in terms of what move is coming from which player, and that seems to be unlocking, again, using overloads to unlock space where it seems like there shouldn't be space. Because that, the position that Rutter was in, right, it didn't seem like he should have enough time to get that shot away, but he had loads of space, really, because again, Welbeck was already sort of occupying what looked like the same space, but then slightly vacated it, and Rutter filled it, and it's pretty to watch. And the second goal was not dissimilar. It was similar, I should say. But yeah, we'll get there. It's really exciting. I'm gushing because, watching these things back, these aren't fluky goals. These aren't, results that can't be replicated, or, movements that will be easy to stop. And I think that's what's encouraging, is we look like scoring right now. And, frankly, so does Bournemouth. And a credit to us for keeping them off the board for as long as we did. But yeah, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you're right, Dagan, because Bournemouth have had an absolute flyer of a start to their season. They've been absolutely fantastic, a lot better than I thought they'd be. Stephen poses an interesting point in the chat here, that saying without Minte in the last 2 games, we haven't had a corner. And I don't know if that fact's true. I trust you, Stephen. But one thing that I've noticed, certainly how our goals are going, at the beginning of the season, we were scoring a lot of goals from crosses coming into the box. Whereas it seems recently our goals have been created a lot more centrally. And I think that, again, we talk about the adaptability of Fabian Hürzeler. especially in comparison to his predecessor. And I certainly think that it shows that the team are willing to find ways, even when we're down players, we're finding ways to score and to look dangerous. And I think that's just a really interesting one. And that corner one's now really making me scratch my brain, saying, have we really not had a corner for 2 games? Not that I ever think we score well from corners. Anyway, Alex.
We didn't have one yesterday, that's for sure. I'll double check in a minute and just have a look at the City game. But yeah, yesterday, no corners. It is telling, isn't it? And interesting, I think. But corners aren't our strong point anyway, right? The other thing is that during the week we did that challenge of can you name the 11 different players who'd scored for Brighton so far in the Premier League, and there isn't a defender in there, right? Hinchelwood, I mean, but not really from a defensive position. So we're not putting those balls. We're not relying on centre backs to get forward and head the ball into the net. We just don't do that. So yeah, I think it's an interesting tactic to try and change it into this more through the centre, as you say. Pressing in the box and getting goals that way. Interesting.
Go on, Dagan.
Well, I was just going to add the other side of that coin, at least going into this game, we had not conceded from either a corner or a cross this year. Did you hear that stat during the broadcast? That was mind-blowing. And again, that's just, we're more pragmatic, more resolute, just more disciplined. There's so many positives to what we're seeing relative to what we have seen. That makes me feel like the fact that we're 12 points better versus this group of opponents relative to last year. You guys know I'm tracking these numbers. It feels like a pattern that we can continue because we're just better right now. We have better personnel and we are performing better.
Yeah, this was very much a game that perhaps last year, the tail end of last year, I would have expected us to go on and lose, because I think we have to say that after we scored, we went off the boil quite a lot, and Bournemouth certainly came into the ascendancy. Now, of course, the weather will play a part in that, but obviously Bournemouth are playing on the same pitch we are, and I think it would be fair to say, certainly from a Brighton's perspective, is Bournemouth were very, very wasteful. But when they were getting things on target, especially Big Bart was there to really, stamp his authority on the game. I cannot praise Bart Verbrugge any more than I've already done this season. But Alex, he's just there time and time again. There was a couple of chances yesterday where every time that either a Bournemouth player was looking like scoring, he'd just make himself big and put in the block. Another fantastic performance from the Dutch number 1.
Yeah, and I think, it helps him a lot getting a consistent run in the team, in the first team. I think that's massive for him. And I think, probably we would have seen some different results last season if we hadn't been chopping and changing so much. Sorry to get a dig in there, but that was, I didn't enjoy that. But yeah, I mean, what keeper? And he's going to get his name linked with a lot of clubs in the summer, I'm sure. I hope we can keep hold of him because he really is making a difference in a lot of these matches right now, and not just in this one, against City as well, against Newcastle. All these games where perhaps we weren't expected to win. He's really, really saved us. Sorry for the pun. Time and time again. And yesterday he had a number of great saves. Four saves yesterday, again, to keep out, the almost relentless attack after that first goal. I mean, it was pretty scary, and kudos to Bournemouth. They look like a very, very good team. We knew that before the match, but they're an exciting team to watch, and they were unlucky yesterday. Frustrating for their fans, I'm sure.
Yeah, harking back from Brighton from yesteryear. Go on, Dagan. Sorry.
So I was going to say, last 2 times out, and I know maybe this isn't as impressive as it was, but win over Arsenal, win over City at home, last 2 times out for Bournemouth. So to go there and get a win on the heels of those kinds of performances is,
Yeah, it's certainly not to be understated, is it? It's they really have done a fantastic job, and as you say, Alex, they were wasteful, and it must be very frustrating from a Bournemouth's perspective. So Dagan, there's just one person I want to chat about before we move on, and that's Van Hecke, another player that has seemingly made so much progress in the last. Oh, look at that beauty! And he's made so much progress in the last year or so. Called up for the Dutch national team, got absolute rave reviews from his performances there. Another stalwart performance from him yesterday. In Dunk's absence, I think Van Hecke has very much stepped up, and more so than ever, sort of laid his claim to perhaps being the best centre back at the club. I know that the site We Are Brighton did a poll about whether, if Dunk was fit, should he come straight back into the team, and it was a no. I know that would have probably been at the expense of Igor, but I think Van Hecke especially has sort of really risen to the top in Dunk's absence.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen that progression over the past, year plus. Yeah, he's very much like Dunk, in that he plays the ball well. He's good with it at his feet. He's good with it in the air. Maybe he doesn't have quite the chest back to the keeper that Dunk does, but all of his other tricks are great. And he's younger and more athletic and faster, right? I mean, all the things that you would want in a system like this. If we could replicate Van Hecke and have two of him out there, I think there's no question that both of them would be in the team, right? At this stage. I think it wasn't that long ago, and maybe even the start of the season, where I said Dunk is still our best center back, but I think he has been eclipsed at this point. Van Hecke's just confidence and presence and dueling ability has just grown and grown and grown. So it's hard to argue with what we've seen from him. I just have to say, the presumption that guys are going to want to go, we are tracking, and England is tracking to get a 5th Champions League spot, and we are tracking to be in the top 5. That means a lot more money in the door. And I don't know if we have clauses in contracts for salary escalations if we make Champions League, but it could be another factor that is enticing to our players to stay. I know it. We just plan for guys to leave, and that's what has happened. But I do think there's going to be a point where more and more say, "What? Why go? Why go to Man United?" Right?
Yeah,
Why
no,
go?
I totally agree. I think we can sit here, and you've said it, about Van Hecke, Verbrugge, João Pedro. Those are the players that come the summer we're all going to be going. But if we get Europe, maybe that's just tidies that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just saying. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. I mean, I'm not wearing my European football shirt for nothing, though. Okay. Stephen, I have seen your comment about the midfield. I'm going to come back to that later, my friend, if that's okay. One thing I just want to talk about before we get into the next thingamajig is VAR taking their sweet time to give the offside goal as offside when it was clear as day. So that's just a little bit of a moan from me. I think it was Cliver got the ball in the back of the net, obviously offside. I don't know why it took so long to decide that was offside. So yeah, a little bit of a moan from me there. Then the half came towards the end for us with a silly booking, which turned out to be monumentally silly for Carlos Baleba, who seemingly had tons of time and space to get a pass away. Didn't. Lost the ball and then was all over their striker to prevent the counter. Rightfully booked, Alex, but a really, really, really silly foul to give away. Really silly yellow card, which ultimately proved really, really silly a bit later on. Carlos Baleba, he looks like sometimes it's all so easy for him until it's not.
Yeah, he's still very, very young, right? And his performances have obviously got people talking this season. I think, especially after the City game when he came on and completely changed the tempo of the game and the direction of traffic, or the speed of that direction of traffic. I think he's a player who's very smart. He knows how to tackle. He really knows how to tackle. And yeah, yesterday it was a bit foolish, and probably on another day we would have not even talked about it after the match. But because of the referee's poor decision later on, that's what we want to talk about, and kind of talk about it with him. And I was annoyed yesterday. I'm going to admit, I came out of it going, "What an idiot!" If he hadn't done that. But it did have a bearing on the result. Really, the only thing it's got a bearing on is not going to be available for next week, which is disappointing for Friday. Sorry, this week, and that shortens our options and takes a great player out of the mix, which is the most disappointing thing about it now. Luckily, we didn't end up dropping points, so good. But yeah, just foolish and rash, and these things happen, and 9 times out of 10 it's fine. You take the yellow. I think in my head he was going to be substituted off shortly before he got the second yellow. But I was like looking for O'Reilly to warm up really at that point. But unfortunately we didn't hook him off in time.
No, we didn't. We will talk about that in a moment. He reminds me of a young Yves Bissouma when Bissouma first rocked up. Very similar player, clearly full of talent and potential. World's his oyster, really is. But as you say, he's young, and there will be mistakes in him because he's a young player. And I think we can certainly turn around and say, yeah, really stupid booking for the first one, second one. That's just poor officiating. But we'll come on to that, because before we talk about the sending off, we've got to talk about the second goal. The second half, Dagan, started pretty much a carbon copy of the first, an early goal from us. Just want to pick up on something you said about the first goal, about the time and space that Rutter was given. João Pedro, you watch it, the amount of times he gets his head up and scans, it's shocking. I mean, it's not shocking. It's fantastic play from João Pedro, but Bournemouth are just giving him all that time and space, and that pass, that through ball for Mitoma to latch onto and to finish it, which is great for Mitoma's confidence, because he's not scored since the opening day against Everton. So it's really good for his confidence, but a huge boost for João Pedro to get a goal and assist as well on his first start from returning from injury. What did you make of the goal, Dagan?
If you haven't seen the camera angle from the end line, he looks it away. His last look is wide, like Mitoma is still wide where he was, and then he plays it through the defenders. I didn't see it in real time that way. I just saw he threaded the pass. It was sensational. But again, just he had the time, obviously, to think about it, but the pass was weighted perfectly. It was timed perfectly. I mean, you couldn't draw it up on the board any better than that, and you couldn't execute it any better than that either. And Mitoma's finish was, pinpoint perfect also. But again, I mean, those are the kinds of things where you see it happen, you're like, wow, that's how we wanted to do it. It's also the kind of thing that when we miss those chances, you don't win. Right. I mean, it's those moments are the difference between winning and losing in the sport. And so, we can wax poetic when it works. But if Mitoma's shot had, hit the post and drifted wide and gone out, for corner, they'd cleared it. It maybe is a different result. Right. And do we feel differently about the way the team is playing? I say that just to say, things invariably will not always go our way this season. We just have to remember the way that we're playing and what we're doing, and how good it is, in fact, and that it positions us to be in a position to win tough games on the road, and potentially to dominate. And what I'm excited to see is I feel like we're just on the edge of this breakout performance, and obviously have two minds with the game coming, where you think, oh, we could pile on goals, but we could just as easily concede a handful at any point. But it doesn't seem like we have that in us, and hopefully we continue. But Mitoma, I know Steven commented he didn't think Matoma was as sharp getting back, and maybe he slowed down in the second half. But I recalled one instance in this game where he skied for a header on a really dangerous looking cross in the first half. And my initial reaction was, who was that got up there? And then I realized it was Matoma, who had, one, tracked back to be that deep, and two, who just elevated, which, I mean, he always shows the ability to get up in the air. But yeah, happy for him to sort of get over the hump and putting a ball in the back of the net, because he's had some pretty weak strikes over the past couple of months. So it was nice to see him be back to being clinical, and let's hope that continues.
Definitely. I mean, Alex, do you feel? I think we might have said it on the last episode. Actually, do you feel like many players, to be fair to them, Mitoma sometimes has a habit of overthinking, whereas when he just takes it instinctively, it tends to work out a bit better?
Yeah, I guess that's probably right. I mean, I still think he's been contributing lots. I just don't think he's been scoring, which we're kind of used to. But the goals have been coming from other places. So does that really matter? As long as he's still posing that threat, cutting in. I think all the games he has been good. I think he's been good. I don't think he's put in a poor performance. You know what I mean? And a lot of people have been kind of saying, he's not as sharp and doesn't look as good. I don't tend to agree with that. I just don't think he's getting as many GAs as we're kind of used to with him. But yeah, I also, he had to travel again, and I know a lot of players had to travel, but Matoma always has to travel quite a long way, or quite a lot further than anyone else. So I think that might have a toll on it, and hopefully, I think now the international breaks, we've got nothing until March, I think now, which is just brilliant because they're a pain in the backside. That really can settle the squad down now for a good few months. We know we're not going to lose anyone for a week. That we're together now, put together a good run. We've got this run of fixtures that look like we could get a fair few points from, and I think they'll just get better and better and better. Like Dagan says, I think we're on. These performances, you see these brilliant moments, and you just think one of these days we're going to absolutely run riot. And I'm hoping it's at home so I can see it. I really want to be there when we start, piling on a team, whoever it is. But yeah, I think it's going to come soon.
Yeah, all the signs are there that it can happen, and I think that we've seen this season we're very dangerous from lots of different positions. As you say there, Alex, I don't think Matoma's had a bad season at all. He just might not be scoring a lot of goals, and if he's helping create them, I don't mind so much. And I tell you one thing, him and Purvis looks to be back to how Purvis used to be, creating triangles all over the pitch. Him and Matoma, their link-up plays just is something to behold when they're both on song, and it's really nice to see Purvis back to his best, and I think that helps bring Matoma back to his best as well. So long may that continue. Stephen, your comment about we only won one of our 7 matches away in London. Do you remember when we won every single game in London? There was that season where we wore Hyper Turk, and every time we went to London, we won. That was nice kit too. That Hyper Turk one. Just as a complete aside, I catalogued all my Brighton shirts today on Blue Sky for some bizarre reason. So if you like Brighton shirts, or just you fancy killing 2 minutes, have a scroll through that. Some good ones in there, if I say so myself. So we went 2-0 up, which turned out to be very important because minutes later, it seemed, Baleba was sent off for a second yellow, which I question whether it was even a foul, let alone a bookable offence. Alex, we've said fairly that the first one was poor, but this is shocking officiating.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. I mean, it's as you say, it's barely even a foul. I think he might graze him on the way over as he goes over. If he does at all, it's hard to see from the angles I've seen. But what ridiculous yellow card to give, especially when a player. Referees, you know, we always, I think referees are an easy target a lot of the time, but generally with players on a second yellow, they are quite, you know, they're quite good and quite conservative, and will bear that in mind when, you know, you've got to go some to get that second yellow and get sent off, right? That was not. So, I mean, I wonder if he forgot that he'd had given him a yellow in the first. I don't know, but it just didn't seem at all like anything you'd give a second yellow for at all. And
No,
it's just a
and I
shame.
think you raise a good point there, Alex, because this whole idea that there should be a threshold, a higher threshold for a second yellow than an initial yellow, is inconsistent at best anyway. So that's like a whole other conversation. Someone mentioned in there about not looking at the yellow, and as you say, Dagan, in response, they can't look at a yellow, which I find is absolutely ridiculous. It's a game-changing decision. And I get the argument that more VAR slows the game down, blah 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 blah. But I keep thinking about how if that was rugby and the referee makes that decision, the TMO is going to look at that and be like, "You might want to have another look at that," because as you say, Alex, he barely brushes him, he barely touches him, and that decision, regardless of whether it's a yellow or not, completely changes the game. So I don't see why decisions like that can't be looked at because it's a game-changing decision. It didn't change the result, but if, for instance, at the end of the season, it comes down to goal difference, whether we get in Europe, would we have conceded that goal if Baleba had been on the pitch? So I get the argument that VAR shouldn't be looking at everything because then where do you draw the line? Corners, throw-ins, all that sort of stuff. It's a ridiculously harsh second yellow card, Dagan. Ridiculously harsh.
The same drum, just consistency, just consistency. That's the part that for me is so frustrating continually. That so often you just see, oh, they're not going to give that for a second yellow. They're not going to give that for a second yellow, right? The language that you reference, there shouldn't be a different set of criteria. But we know that's the way the rules are applied, even though it's not the rule. And so it seemed incredibly harsh. I think in the broadcast, it was said to be harsh. Someone said on Match of the Day, they said it was harsh. Yeah, it was harsh. Did he graze him, as Alex said? Perhaps, maybe. But the attacking player's action, sort of sliding in, stabbing the ball, was at least as dangerous as Baleba kind of running past him. And I think he was surprised that Kirkez sort of went to the ground as he did and tried to kind of get over him at the last second. And like you said, probably grazed him. But it was a mess. Again, that's probably why you don't, when you play the position he plays, give away the cheap yellow when there wasn't a whole lot of threat before that. That's just, not a smart business decision. At best cases, you put yourself in position to be subbed off early in a game where your team might otherwise rather have you out there. Worst cases, you pick up the daggone second yellow, and now you're putting us at risk in this game and in the next one. He does just miss one, right, with a 2 yellow red.
Yeah, it's just the Southampton game, and I know that the chat's going off about it being rescinded. It can't, as far as I am aware. I know Fabian's post-match comments, he seemed to suggest that it could and should be looked at, but no, it's similar to like a red card, an initial, like a straight red card that can be rescinded if a club like appeal it, but then the appeal process is broken in and of itself, because if a club unsuccessfully appeal it, then the player gets banned for an extra game, I believe, which is utterly ridiculous. I swear that he can get up, like if a player's banned for a game and they appeal and it goes against them, I swear it's the player can get banned for another game on top of that, which is ridiculous if that's true. Well, we'll just say that if it's true. But it's one of those games, as I said, it's a game-changing decision. It could have changed the result. We did concede a goal, which we'll talk about in a bit, which could impact us at the end of the season. So I hark back to it. Why can't VAR look at that and just say to the referee, did you want to have a quick second look at that on the monitor? Because from our perspective, it's it's not warranting a yellow card, but we can't change what has been done, but we can certainly moan about it, because that is our God-given right as Brits to moan and tut. I don't know what the American equivalent of tutting is, Dagan, but I'm sure you did it very loudly to indicate your displeasure. But I think, even when we went down to 10, Alex, I think for the most part, perhaps in part due to Bournemouth's tactics or the wastefulness, we looked relatively comfortable for the most part.
Yeah, I thought so. I wasn't particularly concerned as I
No,
was.
you weren't, Alex. No,
I
you
was
weren't. Were you, Alex? No.
I was being pretty bullishly positive about our chances in the game, especially after the second goal. And yeah, I was right, which I was very pleased about. We were okay, and I think it's always good to see how we're prepared for going down to 10 men and what that looks like, and that we can dig in and we're organised. And I think, again, harking back to our defence this season, and some of those stats Dagan said earlier about not conceding from a cross, I think, so far this season, or a corner, is that right? That it just shows the work that unit is putting in. And I know I was a keen supporter of Dunk coming straight back into the team if he was available. He wasn't available, but that's from a leader on the pitch perspective rather than his technical prowess. I agree with you that JPVH is definitely a better centre back now. I think it just shows the quality of that back four and the work they're doing. And it was dangerous, obviously, going down to 10. But we also had a couple of chances as well. We had a couple of moves up the pitch as well. So, yeah, I thought it was a comfortable kind of performance. And it was good to see that we were ready for that and organised. And Fabian's got, a plan there as well, which is no surprise, really.
Yeah, he seems to be a man with a plan. And I think, as you say, Dagan, sorry, Alex, you do certainly, we looked really strong at the back. And you could tell when Ferguson and Mats Vifa came on, they took to their roles really well. I thought Ferguson did a lot of work off the ball that is easy to ignore. But he's the sort of player with the physique that can, help out at the back. And I thought Mats Vifa did really well as well, actually. I was a bit worried that it would become another Wolves performance. And I really hoped that wouldn't play on Mats's mind a bit. Apparently didn't, which is great, because I think he's in with a shout to start the next game. There was a few moments of where the Wolves' sort of poor game management came into it. I thought Adingra and Mitoma, both very guilty of doing a few things. I'm thinking, what on earth are you doing? We've got 5 minutes left. We're 2-0 up. We're down to 10. What on earth are you doing giving the ball away so cheaply? And obviously what Adingra then eventually did was give the ball away, which led to JPVH giving away a free kick, which led to a corner, which led to them, I think was that the goal, or was that when they hit the crossbar? But either way, those moments can cost you. It cost us against Wolves. Me and Aaron in the group chat yesterday were very much of the opinion that it was going to happen again. And Alex did not help by saying, we're not going to concede. We're not going to concede. We're going to win. And we're sat there going, the football gods are angry. They are angry with us. And when Bournemouth did eventually score, me and Aaron were like, see, we told you so. We told you so. Thankfully, it didn't amount to anything more than that. Quick word on the Bournemouth goal, Dagan. David Brooks with a drive into the top corner. Well-worked goal. But we managed to hang on, and that's the main thing.
We did hang on. One thing I wanted to highlight, this could be a very different game if we weren't continuing to improve in holding our line. 5 more offsides drawn, pulling goals back. It just like little things that make the margin, and that is pleasing to me. And again, I know we bemoan the system when we get beat going the other way, but if the line is effective, all that pressure we're putting, is often what leads to goal.
We've lost you, Dagan. He's frozen in diamond space.
And just sent it forward and then immediately went into pinging it around between several different players to create the goal. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. But yeah, I wanted to highlight that despite the one goal conceded there late, but happy that we held on despite being a man down. It's good times. Steven posed a question. I do know the answer to that question. What other players are close to getting a suspension? Right now, Igor, Van Hecke, and Verbruggen are all on 3 yellows. So they are 2 away. So we've got a stretch of games. So they're not 1 away yet, but could come up. So if they get another, we're a little bit in danger there of seeing them miss a game for suspension.
Sorry, Igor's on 4, mate.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Why is my... Don't panic, everyone. Don't panic.
Why is my premiere? I just looked at it.
Dagan's like, you might see something, viewers, that you're very unlikely to see, and that's Dagan being slightly frustrated.
Sorry. Yeah, I just looked up on Sky Sports. He's on 4.
Okay.
But the rest are on 3. Yeah, you're
all
absolutely
right. Well, stupid Premier League hasn't updated their stats then.
Dagan, calm down. It's okay.
Just looked at it. Son of a biscuit. There you go. There's Dagan angry.
We don't see Dagan.
Oh, I froze. I didn't know I froze.
You did freeze.
Yeah, a little bit.
But we got the gist of what you were saying about the high line that was working. I think, but again, it shows the coaching is taking effect, because when the high line, let's take it against Chelsea, where things were going wrong, it's adapted and it's working very well now. And I think that shows what good coaching is about. It's about going, hey, that game didn't work as well as we like it. Let's adapt it. Let's tweak it. And the more time the players get to spend on the training pitch with Herzler learning his system, the better they're going to get. So, it's all part and parcel of the season. It's all good, man. It's all good. Although if that last kick of the game had gone in, which thundered off the crossbar, I probably wouldn't have been so jubilant. I would have probably been a very different, grumpier Tom than the happy one you see before you today. So before, I'm not going to forget it this week. Last time I did this, I totally forgot. Player of the match, before we dive into the post-match stuff, Alex, who would your player of the match be?
Yeah, I was thinking about this before I came on, and I was like, usually I'm pretty clear on who I'm going to choose, but it's a toss-up for me between Bart and João Pedro. I'm going to go for Bart, I think, because I normally give it to attacking players. So for me, yeah, Bart keeping us in the game again with some magnificent saves, as we touched on earlier. He really is becoming an elite level goalkeeper and one of the best in the Premier League. I think it's always telling when you see a lot of guys doing the fantasy Premier League, and a lot of them are saying put Verbruggen in, and I think that in itself kind of says something, right? That he's being consistent. He is making lots of saves, and I think man of the match for me.
Very fair, very fair. I like that elite level goalkeeper. Very good. Dagan, how about you? I know you didn't get to watch it live, but was there any standouts from what you've seen?
No words, just João Pedro.
Yeah, I think João Pedro, goal and an assist. You can't really argue with that, can you?
Difference maker.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And I'd just like to give a quick shout out to Veltman as well. I thought he had a solid game. I think there were times in the first half, especially, he looked quite isolated out there because a lot of their attacks were coming down their left, and he did well, to be fair to him. So just a shout out to Veltman. But for me, yeah, I'm going to make it a clean sweep, a goal, assist. And it's just that second goal for me, that scanning. Like, that's what makes me go, oh, yeah, that's a good goal. So, yeah, I'm going to give it to Pedro because, yeah, very, very, very nice indeed. Does 2 things that I, as a coach, absolutely love: following in and scanning. So, yeah, love that. Let's talk about post-match then, lads. Let's talk post-match. I want to come back to a comment that was made from Stephen. So next week, we come up against Southampton, who lost today against Liverpool. They're still winless. So you can guarantee that means that winless Southampton will rock up to the Amex on Friday, managed by former academy man Russell Martin, and he's gonna win. You just know it's gonna happen because it's practically written in the stars. And Dagen's shaking his head. Dagen, you and your damn optimism. It would be the most Brighton thing ever for it to happen. Let me tell you a story, Dagen, about the championship days. And I know those days are long gone. We were up against Wigan, who hadn't won a game all season, had been awful, who were stinking out the division. They rock up to the Amex, and who do they face? They face us, because who else would you face at the Amex? But they won. And then it's just the sort of thing that would happen. We beat Man City, we beat high-flying Bournemouth, rock up to bottom of the table Southampton, winless. It's just going to happen. It's just going to happen. It is. But I'm going to come back to Stevens. Where's Aaron when you need him? I'm going to come back to Stevens' comment about the midfield, because with Belaber's second yellow card, he, of course, misses that game. So who are we going to play in midfield? For me, it depends if Hinch is back. If Hinchelwood's back, he starts. And he probably starts alongside Matt O'Reilly. Probably. Because I think if you're going to play a double pivot, your centre midfielders need to have different skill sets. I think Ayari and O'Reilly is too attacking. They're too similar of a player. I think Ayari's probably not as physical as O'Reilly, but they're both quite attacking players. And I think O'Reilly's got a bit more box to box about him, but neither of them are the defensive aspect. You could have Matt Zweifer and Matt O'Reilly. That'd be good. Mats and Matt. That'd be pretty cool. For me, I would like a proper out and out, defensive midfielder in there. So I'd probably go for Hinch or Matt Zweifer with Matt O'Reilly. I think he's worth a start. He's worth a start. How about you, Alex? Who would be your centre midfield pairing in Belaber's absence?
Yeah, it depends who's available. I think Hinchelwood's probably a good shout if he is fit, and I think he'd probably start with Ayari. I think Herzler loves Ayari, and I think he's really, really he's one of the players of the season that's been a surprise for me. The amount of game time he's got and how good he's been. And I think we knew he had potential, but yeah, he's really stepped up and taken one of those midfield roles for himself, and I think he's a class player. But yeah, I think Hinchelwood, O'Reilly maybe. I think they're going to take it easy with O'Reilly. I've got a feeling they're going to slowly bring him back in, aren't they, and not rush him back. It was a pretty bad injury and a pretty quick recovery, so I think probably the medical team will be advising him to not rush back. So yeah, Hinch and Ayari for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Hinch and Ayari obviously bossed midfield in the Liverpool game, the first half. Absolutely excellent. So we've seen what they can do. Dagen, where do you stand on the midfield duo for the Southampton game?
Hinchelwood and Ayari was my call as well in the chat there. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be dissatisfied to see either O'Reilly or Zweifer start, which is just a glorious thing to be able to say. We're missing our arguably, guy's been our best player in the midfield, and we're looking at all the other options going, yeah, it'd be fine. I think you make a good point about maybe Ayari and O'Reilly being a little bit too similar. So that would be the one sort of pairing that I maybe wouldn't be as excited to see together. But I think any of the other combinations would be fine, which is pretty encouraging.
Yeah, it's fair. Someone also, Michael, not Michael. Stephen, again, if Minte's fit, would you start him? No, I wouldn't. And that's nothing against Minte on the bench coming on in the second half. I think the team pretty much picks itself at the moment. I think you've got to play basically everyone who played yesterday with just the subbing out of Belaber for either Hinchelwood or Matt Zweifer for me. I think O'Reilly would have gotten game time, Adrian, yesterday had it not been for the red card. I definitely think that would have happened. Or certainly, I mean, I was calling for him to come on at halftime anyway, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. But no, it's an interesting one, and I'm sure Fabian will certainly have a plan up their sleeve, because I think while Southampton haven't been fantastic at all by no means, they've not been a slouch on the attack. So I think they've definitely we've got to watch out for them. And I think if you went Ayari and O'Reilly, you might just open yourself up a little bit. So having that sort of defensive cover in front of the back four might be quite useful. No word on Ferdi Kadioglu yet either. We don't know when he's going to be back. Dunk, don't know when he's going to be back either. So yeah, we'll just have to sort of keep our eyes peeled on that one. But for me, team pretty much stays exactly the same. Alex, would there be any changes for you apart from Baleba?
No, absolutely not. I think they're brilliant. And look, with Southampton, I think there's a team there who are going to play a high press. They're gonna push up. That's what they're doing. It's to their undoing. I think this season, they haven't been as smart with it as some of the teams who've come up. You mentioned earlier, I think we were talking about Ipswich before we came on, and what they've done there. It's been a bit smarter about the way they played and adapted a bit better for the Premier League. Southampton haven't done that. I think it could be fun. I think it could be a fun one, but we'll see.
Yeah. The one thing that intrigues me about this matchup, because of the way they play the ball out of the back and really refuse to hoof it long, I can't help but wonder if Hurstler was open to mixing it up, whether a fit Minta would be a fun person to have on the pitch. Whether even having either him or Adingra, Matoma and Welbeck are both guys who I can't help but wonder if they could use a rest at some point. I guess coming off the international break, Welbeck's pretty well rested right now. But I think there will be a game where we see Jorginho and João Pedro as the central combination, and Welbeck will rest, and we'll see a Mente or someone else, on that right side.
I wouldn't say no to Gruder,
True.
I really wouldn't say no to him, because Welbeck is due an injury. It sounds really pessimistic to say, but it's true. It's I'm going to touch all the wood. He is, he hasn't gone a season with us yet where he hasn't been out for a prolonged period of time. He's had a really good start to the season. So yeah, I do agree, Dagan. He could probably do with the rest, which means we could see Brian Gudra come out. That would be great. People talking about Solly March in the chat. I don't think we'll. Yeah, Milton, you've hit it. I don't think we'll see March again. I love Solly March. I've rated Solly March since he played for our academy. Watched him at Lewis, I think, as well. So we're talking years and years ago. I think he's brilliant. I think he's a fantastic player. I was so happy when Roberto De Zerbi came in and he found that form again. But I just don't think we'll ever see him play again, which breaks my heart because I love that boy. But yeah, I just don't think he's and if he does come back, he will never be the same player he was. I don't think age is not on his side.
It was weird that they did the appearance in the academy game and then that was it. We didn't hear anything. That was very strange, I thought, to give him 20 minutes, him to come off, and then that's it. It's kind of gone all quiet again. Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't want to agree with you, to be honest. It really is upsetting to think that we'd never see him again, especially with the season he'd had before the injury. The way he was getting what he deserves, as a great player for the club and someone who is quite often underappreciated, I think. I think that season really gave him a boost up. So yeah, it'd be very, very sad, very sad. Can I just mention one other comment, Tom, while I'm here? There was one earlier up from Stephen Hannon who said, "Great pod, guys. Who needs Joe?"
Oh, damn! we need Joe. He's the one.
We all need Joe.
He gives us all these lovely graphics. No, Joe's done a really good job. I haven't been here for a lot of this season's podcast because of a whole variety of reasons. So no, Joe's has done a fine job in my absence as the years gone by, at least a usual host. So we love Joe. I know that was said tongue in cheek anyway. So don't worry, Stephen. It's all just banter, mate. It's all just banter. No, there was another comment I wanted to talk to Ferguson. So yeah, a lot of reports over the last couple of days saying about Ferguson potentially going out on loan in June. A whole host of suitors lining up to take his name. One of whom were Leicester, who have just sacked Cooper, their coach. And that brings me on to just a real quick one about that Facundo Buonanotte. What does this might mean for him? Because he's had a phenomenal start to his season at Leicester, playing really well. Of course, new coach coming in could hinder that progress. Dagan with Leicester, obviously, Cooper's not had a huge amount of time to sort of do too much. I think they sit 16th in the league, so they're not bottom by any stretch. But from a purely selfish point of view, we play them in a couple of weeks. What do you think this might mean for Kundo? Do you think the club might recall him?
No. I mean, Leicester's attack has looked abject without Buonanotte out there. By all accounts, any Leicester fans you hear online, he has been a difference maker for them. So, I mean, I guess if they bring in, Moyes and, want to sit back and, sort of not have any possession of the ball and just have kind of pacey players who can, bounce off people in a counter-attacking situation, then perhaps he's less desirable. But I don't know. I just with the players they have right now, I can't see him not getting time. So yeah, maybe the style wouldn't be what we'd want, and I guess it's possible that we'd recall him for that reason if we just felt like this is not suitable for development of a Brighton player. But I think that's pretty unlikely.
Yeah, you're right, Stephen. He won't be able to play against us on December the 8th anyway. But yeah, it's just when there's any upheaval with a team that a loanee is on, it just obviously can hinder development a little bit from their players. And especially considering that apparently they're after Ferguson, but I don't think we can only loan one Premier League team a player at a time. So sort of calls into question whether that's true or not. But of course, it's the rumour mill. And they're basically going to be like, Evan Ferguson, not getting many minutes. Which teams need a striker? There you go. Just real quickly on Evan Ferguson, it was really pleasing to see him score for the Republic of Ireland in the international break. He has got a very informed Danny Welbeck in front of him, a very informed João Pedro in front of him, and Ruta, who's not an out-and-out striker, but equally takes up one of those front two positions in very good form in front of him. So it is going to be difficult. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the club decide to do with Evan Ferguson in January. I personally would keep him around. I would send Julio Enciso out on loan, personally. For me, I don't think he gets anywhere near the team at the moment. I know he's done very well on international break, by all accounts. But for me, he's probably he's not near the team at the moment, especially not near that number 10 spot when you think you've got, João Pedro and Jorginho Ruta in front of him. He's not going to budge those two out at the moment, is he? Anyway, that's enough of my rambling. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. It's such a nice experience to talk about a win at Dean Court. I think that's a rarity. I think it was, as you said, Alex, 80% of their games against us have been a win for them. So that was nice for us. So thank you for joining us live, guys. We look forward to the Friday match against Southampton. Let's hope they can keep up with us. Ha 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 ha. That's a joke from 2010 for any long-term fans out there. But no, it'd be an interesting one. Hopefully it's not all doom and gloom like I perceive it's going to be. I'm sure Alex will very much enjoy rubbing my face in it when we run out 8-0 winners. So there you go. So That's it. Goodbye from me, goodbye from Alex, and goodbye from Dagan. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content if you haven't done so already. Check out our new Blue Sky account as well, where we're going to be doing a lot more stuff as we sort of transition over from X, Blue Sky, whatever. But it's been great to have you guys. We'll see you very soon, wherever you may be, whenever you may be. We'll take key. The last 2 times I've done this, I've ballsed it up, man. So I'm going to do that again. And we're all going to just pretend. We're all just going to pretend that that didn't happen. Okay? Wherever you may be, whenever you may be. We'll see you next time. Take care.